This is the White Coat Investor Podcast, Milestones to Millionaire, celebrating stories of success along the journey to financial freedom.
This is Milestones to Millionaire podcast number 216. Two-doc couple gets back to broke while raising kids in New York City. Are you ready to take control of your financial future through investments that you can personalize to your specific goals? Black Swan Real Estate specializes in helping high-income professionals, including physicians, achieve financial freedom through private multifamily real estate investments. With over 13 years of experience, a $375 million portfolio, and 1,600 plus units under management, Black Swan offers unique opportunities that put investors first. They operate with no GP-level fees, ever, structure virtually unheard of in the industry. Led by physician Dr. Elaine Stoggeberg and supported by a vertically integrated team, Black Swan ensures hands-on management and a proven track record of strong, stable returns. Learn more about their investor-aligned approach at whitecoatinvestor.com/blackswan. All right, welcome back to the Milestones to Millionaire podcast. This is a podcast driven by you. We want to celebrate your milestones with you and use them to inspire others to do the same. You can apply to come on this podcast at whitecoatinvestor.com/milestones. As a reminder, something going on right now through April 8th is $100 off our newest online course. This is our Continuing Financial Education 2025 course. This is good for CME. I think it's 17 credit hours of CME. We build this thing using the content from WCICon every year. And all you need to use is the code CFE100. You go to whitecoatinvestor.com/CFE and use discount code CFE100. We'll give you another $100 off the course. You can enjoy keynotes on lessons from early financial independence, what the die-in can teach us about money and life, and understanding the financial advice industry, and 35 plus other hours of stuff from finance and wellness experts. This is the latest, most up-to-date stuff from the conference that literally just ended a few weeks before I recorded this. Okay, whether you're interested in boosting your personal wellness, fine-tuning your financial plan, investigating tax reduction strategies, living a more intentional life, or planning for retirement, this CME eligible course has got something for everyone. Okay, whitecoatinvestor.com/CFE, and it's $100 off until April 8th using discount code CFE100. All right, we got a great interview. This is a two-doc couple. I think you're really going to love it. Stick around afterward. We're going to talk for a few minutes about mortgages. Our guests today on the Milestones to Millionaire podcast are going to remain anonymous, but we have a two-doc couple here. Let's have each of you introduce yourselves separately, just talking about where you're at in your career path, and what you do for a living and what part of the country you're in.
Sure. So I guess I'll start. And first of all, Dr. Dolly, thank you for having us. Longtime fan, first time doing the recording with you. So I am still in training. I am a PGY 9 at this point, but I have 3 more months to go with my fellowship. I'm in a medicine subspecialty, like procedural specialty, and we are in the New York metro area.
And let's hear a little bit from your wife.
Hello, I am currently in primary care. I am 5 years out of training, still with my first job, working in a big health system in one of their community clinics.
Okay. And you guys have been together for how long?
Wow, medical school.
Since medical school. Okay. So you've been together the whole time. One of you got out of training because the training was a lot shorter.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Very cool. And tell us what we're celebrating today. What have you accomplished?
We're back to broke.
Woo!
That's pretty awesome. Pretty awesome. Which is particularly impressive when you mention how much student loans you had. When you came out of medical school, what did you guys owe in student loans altogether?
Ooh. So my portion was, I think, a little bit over 400, like maybe like 410,000, and my wife is pretty similar.
Okay, so 800,000 plus, and I imagine, given the time period, it's probably grown a bit in the time. What was the most you ever owed in student loans?
Oh, well, today. So I'm on the payee program.
Uh-huh.
Mine is almost 550 by this point. My wife
Wow.
is she's on the repay program, but I
Okay.
think hers is like 440 at this point.
Okay. So you're both going for public service loan forgiveness.
That's the plan.
Yeah, pretty awesome. So you've still got all the student loans basically, or even more than you owed when you came out of training, but you're still back to broke, which means you've been putting a lot of money away somewhere else in the meantime. If you can offset, $1 million in student loans, tell us about that. What are your other assets?
So we have about 600 retirement accounts, all stock. It's S&P 500 and like some small cap, some REIT, and some international as well. We have a good chunk in saving. We are saving for a down payment, so hopefully we'll use that in the next 2 years or so.
Very cool. So about $1 million in assets and about $1 million in debt.
Yeah, a little over $1 million. Yeah.
Very cool. All right. What's your income been over the last 9 years or so? What's it ranged from? Low, and high?
I started out in residency 2016. I think it was 56,000.
Okay.
I was in a low income area for residency, so I think it was like mid fives in residency. And then when I had my first job, it was probably like 200.
All right. And maybe in the last couple of years, all combined, what do you think the two of you have been making? 300,000, something like that? 400,000?
Yeah, a little north of 300,000.
Okay.
So my fellowship is about 100,000 right now, pre-tax, of course. My wife is 225 pre-tax.
Okay. So really, your incomes range from 100 to 320, 330 or so over the last 9 years, and yet somewhere along the line, you managed to squirrel away $1 million out of that. I mean, just doing the math in my head, right? You haven't made that much more than $1 million, right? You've made, 1.5 or something, 1.8 maybe in that time period, and you've still got $1 million of it left. So that suggests to me that saving was pretty important to you guys, that you carved a big chunk of your income out and are using it to build wealth. Any idea what your savings rate has been over the last few years?
Yeah, so like we really started keeping track in like 2022, and then like the 2023 and 2024 is when we actually have data. So we saved about 21% from 2024, and then 24% from 2023.
Okay, so that's not crazy. I mean, that's kind of the range we tell most attending physicians to save, and that's really what your family's been. I mean, one of you is obviously still in training, but one of you is an attending physician. So that's kind of textbook white coat investors doing that, and yet you still, with her only 5 years out, really not even quite 5 years out, have already got $1 million in assets. So that's pretty awesome. What do you think enabled you guys to do that?
I think a lot of it is just really like paying yourself first. So when she first became an attending in 2020, we kind of like had a few months where we just tracked our spending, and then we didn't really like look to see like where we can cut back and everything. And then we saved whatever's left over. And then from there, we kind of talk about it. It's like, all right, well, like what kind of long-term stuff that we're trying to save for. So we're moving away from New York. We're going to need another car. So we've been saving for that for a little bit every month. We're saving for down payment as well. So just little by little, like kind of like what you mentioned, like watching paint dry.
Yeah. And I want to add that this is also while having 3 children. Yeah.
That's a little bit of a complication, isn't it?
Yeah. So, yeah, it's really interesting. And that's why we wanted to do this podcast. And we really want to encourage the listeners to basically show that here we are as a dual physician couple, one of us still in training. We're in a high cost of living area. We have a new family. We do not have family in the area to help. So a lot of our spending is on childcare. We do not have a house, but we are very, very intentional with our savings and asset allocation. And just by, squirreling away all these years and just being really intentional about it, we were able to go back to broke.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome. Tell us about the parental leave you guys experienced.
So legally, I'm allowed to take parental leaves, but because I'm in a procedural specialty and I'm finishing up my training, there really is a balance. Like trying to figure out like what is best for me, like professionally, and what is necessary at home. So we actually like had this talk like extensively. We ended up deciding, you know what, let's just throw money at the problem. So we hired a full-time nanny. It's costing us quite a bit, but that's what's necessary to finish training.
Yeah, so he was unable to basically not take leave. He only used his vacation days to help out when he can. And I was able to do my 12 weeks and work it out with my job to do intermittent leave. So, the frenzy of, running from work to daycare to home, all of that. But I didn't use any extra time. It's just whatever I had allowed, but I didn't take any break. I was mostly full time.
Yeah. But nine months total for 3 kids, right?
Yes,
Yeah. And is that paid maternity leave or was it unpaid?
paid.
It was paid. Very cool. Very cool. And give me a sense, what does it cost to have a nanny? What does childcare cost in a high cost of living area like yours for a 2-doc couple?
So when the younger ones are in daycare, it's $552 a week per child, and a 10% discount for siblings. So childcare is actually our biggest
Okay,
expense.
so four grand a month essentially, and now you've got a nanny.
Yeah. So she's here for the month, and we're actually, because I landed a job on the opposite side of the coast already, so we're gonna be moving back like closer to family. So my wife and the kids are gonna head back first, probably like towards the end of April.
Okay. Very cool to have done all this in a high cost of living area while starting a family. I mean, that's no joke. I remember when after we had our 3rd kid, we were like tapped out. We're done. Going from man to zone coverage was just too much for us. And we just hit the pause button after that. We've got a caboose about 6 years later when we finally recovered from that experience. But it's no joke. And to meet your financial goals as well. Tell us about some of the challenges, right? I mean, you're having to balance. You don't want to, hurt your family. You don't want to hurt your marriage. You don't want to hurt your career, but you also want to start getting ahead financially. Tell us about some of those hard decisions you had to make along the way.
One of the things that was tough was like really like figuring out like where we want to like where our goals are in terms of our financial goals. For example, like we like to eat out, we like to travel, and we like had to intentionally like carve out some money for that. So what we did is like actually my wife has been like doing a lot of sacrifice in this area. Like we live in an area where there's a little extra room for the kids in a safe area, but the compromise is that she has an hour commute in the morning, an hour commute to come back. Because of that, we're able to save something on rent, and we're able to like go on a few pretty often trips recently. So I think it's really like being intentional on where we spend the money and trying to figure out what makes us happy.
Yeah, I was going to say it really tests the marriage when when we want to also grow our assets as well. And we took a lot of tips from the podcast and from other advice columns as well, such as like we really carve out time to work it out as a couple and talk about our finances. Some conversations can be heated.
You guys had a disagreement?
Yeah.
Really? I can't believe it. That never happens in marriage.
Yeah. Things said like, you're crazy. How could you? What about my happiness? Mostly from me. But yeah, it really tests a marriage, but also it helps us really communicate honestly with each other and be very, very realistic. So I'm really happy that we were able to reach a compromise. But, also when you make the right compromise, you don't feel like you're compromising in the sense of, we're not pinching pennies, right? We do take trips. And as someone that's living in New York, is just, I would like to spend money on trips rather than a extravagant apartment. Right. So that's the sacrifice we make. But I'm more than happy to do that. Like, I would rather deal with a longer commute, but we want to go to Hawaii.
Yeah, clearly the ideal is to, spend your money on what you care about most. There's no doubt about that.
Exactly.
But now you got 2 people. And they don't always care about the same things equally. And what have you learned about fighting fairly when it comes to financial disagreements?
I don't know if it's fair. The best marriage advice I got was don't keep score. Right? There's no there's no such thing as fair. You just, you love that person and you make it work. And but you always have like we do take time to do it, like also a marriage check-in as well, in addition to our finances. So I was like, oh, how are we doing in this relationship? Checking the status, because a lot of times, he's in a procedural specialty coming home late, right? We don't have the bandwidth anymore to communicate. So it's really important to take time out, either for date night or, when we have the parents to babysit, and just take a moment to reevaluate, our relationship, our finances, and things like that. And we do that on a very regular basis, which I really appreciate.
Mm. Now, public service loan forgiveness is a big part of your financial life. I mean, within the next, year or two, your net worth may go up by $1 million. And now we've got a new administration in place. There's lots of talk about, forgiveness not being as politically popular as maybe it was a couple of years ago. Changes to the income-driven repayment programs. What have your thoughts been the last couple of months, knowing that so much of your plan relies on this federal program?
If I were to do it again, I'd probably be a little more intentional on like how much I borrow. Like 10 years ago, this felt like monopoly money for me. And I would say like I probably had a good chance for a scholarship, but I didn't even bother to ask at the time. So just reason being is I thought it's like, PSL life is going to work out. It's not going to be a problem, yada, yada, yada. But at this point, I feel like we have a pretty decent saving rate. And if we have to redirect our savings somewhere, we could. So it's going to work out somehow. But of course, like one way is going to be cheaper than another. So we're keeping a close eye on it, and we'll see what happens.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think you're almost surely still going to receive it, given how far you are into the program. I expect you to be grandfathered in. You may have to change to IBR, new IBR instead of pay and repay. I wouldn't be surprised by that at all.
Yeah, sorry.
But IBR and public service loan forgiveness, they went through Congress. It takes an act of Congress to change those. And well, I guess that's possible. Congress could change the rules. That would be extremely unusual historically, to change the rules on people that really ought to be grandfathered into the program. But I know there's lots of worry out there about this these days.
Oh, yeah. I actually just recertified, I tried to recertify back in end of January. Nothing went through. So my last payment of $300 is in March next month. So supposedly I'm going to pay $5,000. So I'm trying to work that out. But right now there's a 5-hour wait for all the Mokila phone calls. So
yeah, it would help if they, didn't lay off half of the Department of Education, but such is life, I suppose. Okay, there's somebody else out there like you guys were 5 or 10 years ago, high cost of living area, maybe a 2-doc couple, maybe they want to get a family started. What advice do you have for them?
So we did not have a specific number goal in mind. So we did not know that, in 5 years we could go back to broke. I think that as a couple who was just starting to navigate the more complex finances, we were just we made our goals very, very simple, as in max out the retirement, have a savings rate. That's all we started with in the beginning. And slowly, year after year, it created this great snowball effect, a very slow snowball, but our foundation got stronger and stronger. Our assets became more and more. And with that, we were able to add on to our finances. Let's save for a house. Oh, let's save for a car. We might not have the conditions now, but it is for later. Even though we have a lot of debt, we have the earning potential. We're not afraid to still spend money on ourselves, but at the same time, continue building on that foundation. Even when, money's going out the window with childcare. So just a little goes a long way.
Yeah, I mean, I echo that. Really just taking the baby step to kind of automate our saving. I think that really helped. So I'm looking back at our numbers, really our net worth like 2 years ago was like negative 400,000 with the student loan and everything. And now, like over the last 2 years, it went up by about 500,000 without like doing anything really like extraordinary.
Yeah. Well, the stock market certainly helped provide you a tailwind for the last couple of years for sure. But
Oh, for sure. Yeah. And I think also it's like communicating with significant other, trying to figure out what is important to with him or her and be on the same page as much as we can.
Yeah, and that didn't happen in a day, you know. That yeah, there was a lot of heated discussions. So, but you know, like I said, just as long as you make time for it, you know, communication is free. So, as long as you communicate with your partner, you're able to together achieve a financial goal.
yeah, very cool. I appreciate you saying that, right? Because sometimes you listen to these podcasts and everything's, pure bliss. Everybody always agrees. And, and that's not the way real life is, right? Real life, people are different and they have, different thoughts and ideas and priorities, etc. Well, congratulations to both of you on your success. Getting back to broke with one of you still in training and living in a high cost of area and raising, 3 kids now is no small accomplishment. You should be very proud of yourselves. We're proud of you. And thank you so much for coming on the podcast and being willing to inspire others to do the same.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
Thank you for having us.
Okay, I hope you enjoyed that interview as much as I did. I thought that was a lot of fun. The best part about it is that they weren't afraid to mention, they've disagreed about stuff over the years. They've been at this for a decade now. And they didn't always agree on everything, right? I think for a little while in that household, my name was probably a cuss word. But, that happens sometimes as people are trying to figure out how they want to live their financial lives. And it is, I always say personal finance is a single player game. It's you against your goals. That's not entirely true. It's a 2-player game. You're not playing against each other. You're playing with each other. And you've really got to play with each other to be successful in this endeavor. And 2 people working together, especially when both of them are physicians, even though, they got the hassles of being a doc, one of them's still in training. And of course, they've got to spend a whole bunch of money on childcare. It's hard, but they've also got 2 big shovels and hopefully $1 million PSLF bonus coming within the next few years. And so they may get pretty far ahead there. All right. I mentioned at the top, I was going to talk a little bit about mortgages. It's kind of mortgage season, right? If you've ever bought or sold a home, it was probably between March and June. That's just when doctors tend to buy homes, whether you're in residency or not in residency. And I'm not going to get into the fact that I think most residents ought to at least consider renting their homes. The truth is, most of you aren't going to, no matter what I tell you. So let's be smart, whether you're a resident or you're an attending, about how you pay for that home. Okay. There are mortgages out there called doctor mortgages or physician mortgages. And the point of these mortgages is that, they trust you a little more than a typical person because of your high, stable income. So you can kind of get a pretty sweet deal on a mortgage. It's not necessarily lower interest rate and lower fees, but without putting 20% down, you can get out of paying the insurance that protects the lender from you defaulting. Okay, this is just a cost to most people when they buy a home and don't put 20% down. For you, if you get a physician mortgage or a doctor mortgage, and it's available to a few other professions as well, you don't have to pay that insurance. So that's the benefit. You can also close without actually having pay stubs. You can just have an employment contract. And a lot of times, even just an independent contractor kind of contract is enough for you to close on that home. Now, a lot of times it makes sense to make sure you like the job and the job likes you before you buy a home. That might take 6 months or 12 months after you move there, and that's okay. It's okay to move to a new city and rent for a while. When we moved to Salt Lake, we rented for about 6 months. And so we knew exactly what homes were worth. We'd looked at every home for sale in a 2-mile radius area, the place we were interested in living. We knew what they were worth more than the people selling the homes, more than our realtor, knew what they were worth. It just gave us a lot of time. Yeah, we could be patient and we could be, a little bit strategic about what home we bought and how much we paid for it. And because of that, we got a pretty darn good deal in a house we're still very happy with. 15 years later. So don't be in a rush that you feel like you got to fly in 3 days, buy a house. You don't have to do that. You can rent. You don't have to rent an apartment. You can rent a house. There's houses for rent just about everywhere you want to go. You can rent a house for 6 months or a year. Even if you got to pay a little bit more for it because it's a month-to-month contract so you can get out of it in 6 months. But make sure the job's going to work out. Make sure you have a stable family situation, a stable professional situation, because you need to be in a home 3 to 5 plus years to work out well for you financially. You need to appreciate enough to cover the transaction costs, and that takes time, right? I mean, some home prices have gone nuts in the last few years, and it hasn't required that much time for it to appreciate enough to cover the transaction costs. But traditionally, on average, over the decades, it typically takes 3 to 5 years for that to happen. So be very careful out there buying homes that you think you're going to be in less than that time period, and make sure it's highly likely that you're going to be there for that sort of a time period for it to work out well financially. Now, we've got a list of not only physician, but regular mortgage lenders. You can find whitecoatinvestor.com. Just go to the recommended tab and you'll see it there. And they can help you see what's available in your state where you're buying and get the best deal you can on a mortgage. Remember, though, you are dating the mortgage, right? You're marrying the house, you're dating the mortgage. If rates go down, you can refinance that mortgage in a year or 2 or 5 and hopefully get a lower interest rate than the initial one you purchased it with. Even this home that we moved into in 2010, we refinanced it twice and got lower interest rates before we paid it off. We paid it off after 7 or 8 years in the house, but we refinanced it twice before then. You marry the house, you date the mortgage. Today's sponsor, Black Swan Real Estate, offers accredited investors access to private multifamily real estate investments with an investor-first model. Unlike most firms, Black Swan collects no GP-level fees and takes no profit until investors receive a full return of capital. Their physician-led team brings a hands-on approach to managing their $375 million portfolio, ensuring every asset is optimized for cash flow, appreciation, and tax advantages. With a track record of meeting and exceeding return targets, Black Swan Real Estate provides stability and growth for long-term wealth building. Discover more at whitecoatinvestor.com/blackswan. Thanks for being part of the White Coat Investor community. I'm sorry those of you who had a rough day at work today. Hopefully it will be better tomorrow. Keep your head up, shoulders back. You've got this. We're here to help. We'll see you next time on the Milestones to Millionaire podcast.
The hosts of the White Coat Investor are not licensed accountants, attorneys, or financial advisors. This podcast is for your entertainment and information only. It should not be considered professional or personalized financial advice. You should consult the appropriate professional for specific advice relating to your situation.